back here next Tuesday and we're talking about a 49ers win, what are we talking about? What are we talking about? How well the 49ers defense contained the Eagles offense, how Purdy protected the football. What is the thing that you'll come back here and say the 49ers won because of this, if you had to predict?
I think it's going to be the same way they've been winning all years, like both sides of the ball playing high level. But to me, again, I'm going to still say the defense is key here because Hurts has been turning over the football. I expect them to turn over the football once, probably even twice. And that's where the 49ers, you have to expose him for that. You could probably even get more than that because, again, like you asked earlier, like, is this the best defense that's played aside from the Jets? And it's like, yeah, probably. It probably is. And right now you're clicking all cylinders. Your pass rush is what? I think they have 15 sacks and something like that in the last 3 games. So clearly Chase Young coming in is helping. Schematic changes from Wilkes and Nick, everyone stepping up in general. Like everything. It's been everything cumulative collectively. So I think now, like, again, when you're saying luck is like, hey, the Eagles have been able to do this because Hurts is playing so well. Everyone comes together. They just rally and just pull like 2-3 amazing touchdown series drives out of their you-know-whats. So it's like, but I don't think they could do that necessarily against the 49ers. They might be able to pull out 1, maybe 2, but like in terms of like 3, 4, now I think you're the Eagles. You're really pressing your luck if you want to put yourself in that situation. Because now you're putting the 49ers in a place of comfort. And I mean, again, if the Eagles have a lead, I'm more scared for the 49ers. I think whoever has a lead, especially if it's 2-score, as much as Hurts has been great, I think this is where the luck starts to become a little slower or ran out. I think this is where they make them pay. Because, again, like it's not like the Buffalo is really like that running team anyways. Because if there's one thing I learned from that Chiefs game the Eagles, it's the Eagles can be had on the ground. So that's why I think they could probably run over that defense with McCaffrey and Debo. Again, the horizontal game, that's how you're going to soften up that pass rush a lot. And then you can open up and start throwing with Purdy across the middle with Ayuk. That they love those dagger routes, those crossing routes, and then maybe even take several shots throughout. So, yeah, I think ultimately it's going to be a combination of the defense holding tight, getting those turnovers, and hopefully the offense pays them back. But especially that Purdy doesn't turn over the
capitalizing on the turnovers is going to be important. 1, catching the turnover, actually catching it when it hits your hands. Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner.
Because you know what? The Bills did take advantage of his turnovers. They got 14 points off his turnovers. It was the fact that they couldn't necessarily maybe like go from like, you know, from their side to the other so at ease. Because remember, 14 of those points were off of turnovers. And I think the 49ers are more capable of going from 1 to 100 down the whole field because they are a vastly better running team than the Bills. The Bills have a very mediocre running team.
Yeah. Okay. I want to figure out how to phrase this because I don't want to bad juju it. But if the opposite happens and we're coming back here next week and we're not talking about the 49ers win, we're talking about an unfortunate outcome, why do you think that would be the case? What do you think you're going to point to that's the reason that the 49ers lost this game?
The offense, after like maybe like having an opening quarter of like looking good, couldn't sustain it. Purdy had some turnovers, and the defense eventually started to crack in the second half because there's only so many drives you can hold on to limiting that offense. Because I expect there's going to be a couple of touchdown drives and maybe like a couple or a few field goals. I mean, there's only so many drives you're going to be able to hold on. So if you're the 49ers, again, this is where you execute the run game hopefully efficiently and holding up his time of possession. But yeah, if we're saying a loss, it's because the offense couldn't sustain the ball too many drives and didn't put up enough points, and eventually the defense started to crumble. Because I think the defense is going to come out to play like they did in the NFC Championship game.
Yeah.
And then, sure enough, what happened?
At the end of the third quarter.
That's when they started. That's where the whole everything. They like at that point it was like hell. I'm surprised they even lasted that long. And honestly, like I picked the Eagles to win that game. And then I came away thinking, like, you know, if Purdy was healthy, the Niners probably would have won. Because, again, the defense started to crack towards the third quarter end, and somehow they still scored a touchdown without Purdy and essentially, like, with just McCaffrey, with just literally the McCaffrey drive. So imagine they actually had Purdy in there. They probably score, like, another, like, 14 points at least and give the defense, like, more of rest. So, yeah, so I don't know if you're going to ask me this, but I'm going to say this. The more the week is gone, I think the Niners are going to win this game now. Like, first after that, I was like, no, I don't think they're going to win. Now I'm like, you know what? They might win this game. And probably even convincing fashion. I'm not bold enough to ever do that too much unless I'm really feeling it. What I think is going to happen is the Niners have a lead, and then all of a sudden Hurts has that random magic that looks good, and the defense is like starting to crack. And then eventually the Niners have like an icer. So that's where I can see like it's going to be like a 27-24 game in a way. That it's going to be like the Niners are going to hold on to like 24 points. It's going to be like 24-14 for like a good minute. And then the Eagles just like same way almost like with the Bills, except the Niners are going to finish it. They're not going to have that mess up. So hopefully in that case,
that would be so impressive.
I think
Because we
that's
haven't
what's
really
going to
seen
happen.
the 49ers pull it out that way.
I think that's what's going to happen. You have that lead, which, you know, it's still going to be like naysayers like Grant, like, well, he still didn't have a lead. But it's like, you know, or he didn't have to come back. It's like, you know what? They don't have to come back when you play that well. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
So I think if you're the Niners, especially you do that and you hold on in that way, I think that's even better than if you just beat their ass like 42-0.
Do you think that if that style of game happens, and maybe even if they're not winning solely because of Brock Purdy, but if he's optimizing the offense, as you love to say, your keyword, and playing his part correctly, we're talking about right now Jalen Hurts being in that, top of the MVP talk category. Do you think that Brock Purdy will take over? Obviously, I think as fans of the 49ers, sometimes we attribute more to Christian McCaffrey, but just for the way the award works, I do think that quarterbacks get the slight edge. Do you think that Brock Purdy could amplify himself to be in that conversation?
Oh yeah. And I actually just wrote it over the weekend. Does 49er, does Brock Purdy deserve to be in the MVP discussion? And I said no. Because especially since he didn't look great against the Seahawks. Like, he was fine, he was solid, he had a good game overall. But yeah, that third quarter, he was pretty bad. They had the pick six. He's the one that gave the Seattle Seahawks life, essentially.
Yeah.
And then, so again, the Niners won and he played fine overall, but we really needed you to not only win, but you needed to look really good, like you did against the Bucks, and in prime time. That's the one thing that pretty much puts the stamp on is primetime games really like emphasize everything. That's what really gets chatter going, because no one cares about how great you look if you're playing at 10 a.m. or 1 p.m. Although this Sunday it does matter because you are the game of the week. Like, everyone who is anyone, fans, like, they're going to be watching that game. So now now you have another chance. And that's what I wrote about. It's like, hey, if you go into that game and not only win, but win well, and you played really good, like say he throws for just like almost 300 yards, 3 tugs, and no picks, we're talking about a guy, he's definitely entered the MVP discussion. It's like, wow, and now you have that. Now it's like, wow, they really just need Purdy.
You can see that more being possible because the Eagles do really struggle against the passing game. Because that's not always Brock Purdy's game. Sometimes it's more of a run-first game, but I hypothesize that Kyle Shanahan is gonna cause more.
Yeah.
Oh, this guy who's been in our chat kind of, I think he's an Eagles fan, going off, just said that you're speaking facts, respect to your realness. Bam, speaking facts, baby. But he also said, I want to see y'all in the NFC Championship so bad. Win or lose, don't mean nothing. We are the top of the NFC. Cowgirls. Okay, I'm not gonna say that part. All respect to that. I love when fans of other teams come in, as long as everyone's respectful. I get a kick out of shit talking. I know. Have you been to a Philadelphia game? I know there's like people say it can be scary, but then other people say it's not a big deal.
It's just they have no filter when they're trash talking, so I guess it depends what your skin is. Some of it's over the line, of course, but like, yeah, it really depends. Like,
did you see that viral video? It's like a little kid goes up to a Bills fan to
I thought that was funny, but I can see why people were like, well, how you raising your kids this way? And it's like, it's like, oh.
Yeah. And I laughed at first, and then same thing, I saw some of the people being like, you're lucky that fan was like, had a good sense of humor. And I was like, okay, maybe you're right. But I don't know. I try to not take stuff like this too serious. Like, it's just a sport at the end of the day. The players are having fun. Did you see AJ Brown telling all the Eagles fans to go give Deebo Samuel shit? Like,
as long as you don't be like racist or something like that, or say like you gotta die or like something like that. You could say F your team sucks. So that's cool. That's standard. Yeah, that's all sounds good to me. A lot of people just don't have thick skin anymore, but I know I do. They're all like a lot of things where Eagles like fans have seen videos, especially in the NFC Championship game, where it's like, yeah, these guys are kind of scum. You gotta give me like almost Boston vibes.
Yeah.
Except
You're
Boston
right. You're
fans
right.
are
You're right.
racist, like actually racist,
It's,
hardcore. Some of them, in
don't
my
love,
encounter, it's
don't
been
love
like,
that. Don't
excuse
love
me,
that.
some of them, not all of them, but yeah.
I've heard it's very, very, very white. My best friend, she's in New York right now, and her boyfriend is from Boston, and he's like very rich, and we are very much not rich, and didn't like she didn't grow up with money, and I was like scared the whole time I was there. Everything is like old and nice, and I feel like I do not belong, and it's very scary and very like too rich and too white for me to feel comfortable. Really quick, this guy who I don't know him at all, definitely not my dad, um, says CMC is going to get screwed by the NFL on the MVP pick. They'll pick a quarterback instead. Christian McCaffrey is more important to the team than
It
Purdy
should
is.
be a non-quarterback. Yeah, he's right. CMC is gonna get
There needs to
screwed.
be a there needs to be like an MVP for the not because it's always going to go to a quarterback because the quarterback is the most
But it
valuable
wouldn't start
position.
that way until like 6 to 8 years ago, or actually maybe
Oh,
10 years
really?
ago. But yeah, I don't know why it just started being like that. Like, because it never used to always be like that. Who was the last person to win it? Adrian Peterson, Derrick Henry, Adrian Peterson. Derrick Henry never won it. Adrian Peterson, I think, was was the last one, I think. So, because again, to me, it's still Tyreek Hill and TMC at the top, and then there's kind of a gap from the quarterbacks. But because look, if anyone's was quarterback MVP, it's probably Mahomes, given like how much he's struggling with. I mean, not struggling, but given like how much he's doing with literally nothing, essentially.
Yeah.
Hurts has everything, and he looks like worse than last year. Um, yeah, it's just quarterback. It shouldn't be a quarterback this year. If there's any one year to break it, it's this year. Tyreek Hill already got like 1,000 yards like 3 weeks ago.
He's gonna be. That's what I'm saying. I do think even if it's not a quarterback, I don't know if it would be CMC. I think it'd be between Chris McCaffrey and Tyreek Hill, and I think Tyreek Hill might get 2,000 yards. Now I'm not sure right now. It's possible that Christian McCaffrey gets up to like a thousand now. Is that too?
Receiving,
No, just
he's not
kidding.
going to get
Look,
receiving.
you
I
just
think he's
looked at
barely
me
at
like
400 yards right now.
I hate you. Sometimes I just say sometimes
He'll
I just
probably
say
get,
shit.
I think I see him getting no higher than like 700 receiving yards when it's all said and done. And then he'll have like 1,500 rushing because
You know what's interest you
he's
know what's
already like what I
interesting,
think it's at 939, 989, something like that rushing yards. He's leading the league, so obviously he's gonna be over 1,000 after this game. I think.
Yeah.
I think he'll get right at 1,500, and then he'll get like 700 receiving yards, which is still stellar numbers, especially like how much you're accumulating in. He has 11 rushing touchdowns, which I imagine he's gonna end up probably finishing with like 15 or 16 or something like
You know
that.
Jalen Hurts has 11 rushing touchdowns too? Isn't that kind of crazy?
Does he have 11 touchdowns, or does his offensive line
Yeah.
have 11
11
touchdowns from pushing him in there?
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
could get 11 touchdowns with the offensive line, even with my bad knee. What the hell?
I
It's not like
think
Lamar
that
Jackson.
why don't the Ravens do that? Because I
Why
understand
doesn't
why
anyone
Brock
do
Purdy
that?
doesn't. I think it's because you have to have a strong quarterback with like strong legs in order to do it, right? I also think it's a dangerous play
It
for as
is
often
definitely a
as they
dangerous
do it.
play.
Like I understand it's
He'll
definitely a
probably get banned
valuable
after
asset
this
to
year.
them, but yeah, it seems like a recipe for one of these. Okay, hold on. Um, I think if you replace CMC with Mitchell, then it'd be better if you replace Brock with Darnold. This is why it's a
I think we
quarterback.
talked about that
Yeah, I
last week.
agree. I agree.
Like between who would get hurt when we're ranking the top 5. Like, yeah, that's why I said
I
yeah,
think
like
that's why when people are talking about MVP, they do lean towards it being Brock
because
Purdy
he's more
because it's
influential.
as important as Christian McCaffrey is to this team. The loss of Brock Purdy would be the most detrimental loss, maybe
It's just
outside
a
of Trevor
very
Williams.
I tend to lead Purdy still, even though I have McCaffrey as the MVP. It's in terms of the offense specifically for the 49ers, because he he's the one that delivers the ball to everyone, right?
Yeah.
McCaffrey does so much because not just his production as a runner with 900 plus yards, as a receiver with how many yards and catches, but he makes things easier for Debo and everyone else. So he's just overall impactful. Where Purdy, again, like I said, he's the one that gets everyone else, like he's the one that is able to like get the most out of his plate, right? Like I said last week. But Yeah, that's why it's very tough. Again, like if McCaffrey goes off the rest of the month, then it's hard. But that's why it literally takes like Jalen Hurts and Mahomes or any of these quarterbacks, if they just have a solid December, then they're probably gonna, one of them's gonna run away with it. This is why like all Purdy has to do, it starts now with the Eagles. Everyone watching, it's like if he plays good, like even if he just had 280 yards and those 3 touchdowns, like that's a really good stat line. But if McCaffrey had like 150 rushing yards on 18 carries, 3 touchdowns, 5 catches for 90, 100 receiving yards, which is probably better than Purdy, then Purdy's still going to get uplifted as the better guy from this game, especially because of the last game, right? Like McCaffrey had great numbers too, I think, but they couldn't come close to winning because they didn't have Purdy or a logical or even a caliber quarterback. So yeah, it's just
really,
it's always
really
nuanced
quick,
and everything's small.
really quick.